On today's episode, I sit down with Shannon Roddy. Shannon is first and foremost an amazing guy. If you have the good pleasure of sitting and chatting with him, you should consider yourself lucky. But he is also the owner of Marketplace Seller Course, a course to help sellers effectively sell more efficiently on Amazon. He's a hands-on consultant, takes on a select number of clients a year, and honestly, I learned a lot about his methodology, how he approaches things, and find him inspiring. So I hope that you listening at home enjoy this session as much as I did. Hi, and welcome to Successful Scales, the show where I interview now successful professionals about their journey and try and garner insights onto any tips that can be applied to your business at home. Whether it's financial freedom or the exit of your company, wherever your journey may take you, the idea here is to simply learn from those who have done it before. I hope you enjoy and you get some value out of this. Buckle up and enjoy the episode. Shannon, mate, welcome to the show. Welcome to Successful Scales. It's an absolute pleasure having you here today.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm really looking forward to it based on our last conversation, and I can't wait to just jump and dive right in.
Yeah, and it's pretty crazy. I mean, we got introduced through a mutual friend, and it was supposed to be a 30-minute conversation, and we got stuck on the phone for 45 an hour, and we're like, we have to do this again. And so here we are. And yeah, mate, like I said to you before, I'm sure this is the first one we're going to do together, but I guarantee that it's not going to be the last. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, brilliant. No, it's my pleasure.
So I've gotten to know you a little bit in the time we've chatted, and have been super impressed with just everything from, we were talking about high level commercial philosophy. It was probably the fifth thing, the second or third thing we started talking about was nothing related to what we do for work. It was really just about our mindset, our methodology. But for those listening in who don't know you, I mean, not that I know you so well, but I feel like I got a deep peer into your soul in that moment. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, even just starting off, I think the day after we spoke, I did a LinkedIn post, and the text that I put up on the graphic was, people don't bond over a common business, they bond over common belief. And I think that's the exciting part. And it's something that's actually very relevant to every business, that yes, you can sell a commodity product and have a very market value transaction with customers. But if you want cult-like followers, if you want to build a tribe, then it's not even going to be about the product. It's going to be about the common belief that you share. And you look at the greatest companies that did that, companies like Disney, like Coca-Cola, Apple, that sort of shared this common belief of what's deeper and more important. So anyways, I love that aspect of it. But, to kind of take me back, I was always fascinated with inventions and innovation as a kid. Like, I loved creating things. I loved building things that other people could use. And so I read about books about Thomas Edison and any other inventors that I could come across. How Velcro was invented because some guy took his dog on a walk and came back and the burrs were stuck to the dog's hair, and he's like, well, why did that happen? And he pulled them off and he looked at them under a microscope and saw the little hooks, and he thought, I've always just loved and been fascinated with that idea of invention. And then I think in the back of my mind and really in my heart, I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dad, who I'll probably bring up multiple times throughout the podcast, he was always he's a manager, and he always wanted to be the number two guy. He never wanted to be the number one guy. He's like, I want you to have the headaches. I want you to make the big decisions. I'm fine kind of like just managing the business and helping it grow. But I knew for me, I wanted to run the show. I knew that I wanted to be in charge. It's like, I'll take the blame. I'll take the responsibility. I wanted to be top dog. Not because I felt the need to, have control or influence over anything. That was just the position that I wanted. That's just what I felt drawn to be in a position of leadership and being a driving force and going first. And I love it. So that's like very, very big picture, high levels where I started, but we can also dive into the practical of how I actually got started as an entrepreneur.
Well, before we do, I just want to say that you know, we haven't spent that much time together, but just everything about you speaks leadership to me. You know, from you putting that LinkedIn post, which was like for me, and we haven't spoken about it, but that was like extremely heartfelt and very touching. And, you know, it's like we met for the first time, but we shared something on that first
Yeah.
call, you know, like it was real and it was raw and it was about how we viewed the world, and it had nothing to do with trying to create any form of commercial gain. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I've also got to admit to you something. I have
Shoot.
stolen from you.
Brilliant.
I have stolen from you, and I've stolen the worst possible thing because
it's not IP.
No. Well, I don't know if you call. I guess it is kind of your IP, but you said something to me. You said something to me on the call, and it has not stopped resonating in my mind since we spoke last week. And you classified the world as innovators and imitators, and I've got to say I must have repeated that like 2 or 3 times since that call, because it really for me solidified who you were in my mind, just having such fresh ideas on what it is. I mean, we're sitting here and we're starting to even go through your background, and you started in a totally different place to where most people do. And so I just think that you have this unique ability to break down complexities. And, you know, like I haven't heard many people share the thing that I think we bonded over first. And that is, you know, Amazon is a huge deal. We can make no mistake about how big a deal it is and what's happening in the space and all this movement. But we both looked at it as a marketing tool, in that if you're not there, you're missing out on 50% of every dollar spent online, and it's not the be all and end all. And I feel like a lot of people aren't seeing things that way. So yeah, I mean, just to kind of highlight the fact that, you know, I really value your insights, and I just really was quite touched by that LinkedIn post.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, Steve Jobs said, "Amateurs borrow, professionals steal," right? And I think he stole that, to be honest. But the idea is, it's not that we're stealing somebody's intellectual property, but you know when you watch a movie and they say no characters in this movie resembling any actual characters, it's merely coincidence. No, it's not. You can watch the behind the scenes with the director or the writer, and he's like, that was my 3rd grade teacher, and that was my ex, and this person was, my girlfriend from high school. Like, of course we steal from real life. But the idea is that we borrow or take principles and concepts and we apply them. And that's just called wisdom. And that's just being smart. So innovators and imitators, take it, run with it, use it. And there's a great quote that says, and this is really based around collaboration, but you can accomplish anything so long as you don't care who gets the credit. And I like to say, like, do you know who said that? It doesn't matter, right? Because if they really believed it, it's attributed to like Harry Truman, but of course it's attributed to 50 other people. If you really believe it, then it doesn't matter. If you have a principle or something of value, you have a responsibility to bring it into the world and leave it a better place than when you came. And there's a line from a poem. I studied, English, like British literature when I was in college, and I didn't really enjoy the class. It wasn't one of my favorites, but there's a line from a poem, and he was talking about writing poetry, like what makes good poetry. And there's a line from a poem, and he said, "What was oft thought, but never so well expressed." And it's that idea of like, if you can find a way to encapsulate a concept or a principle that a lot of people are like, yeah, I've felt that, I've thought about that, but I've never heard it put that way. That to me is something that I really enjoy doing. I work very hard at it, but it's also something that comes natural to me, right? It's like a professional athlete. Michael Jordan, naturally great at the game, but also worked insanely hard at it. And kind of to put those together of, I have strengths and I have skills and talents, and how can I work to make those better? That's kind of where I live. So my favorite thing is taking really, really complicated things and making them simple for other people to understand. Complicated concepts, complicated, whether it's a platforms like Amazon, whether it's concepts like innovation, breaking it down and creating resources for other people so they can take it and apply it to their lives. You know, not just PhDs, not just people with MBAs and masters. Like, that's great, but I want to write books, and I want to give talks that inspire everyday people to take their dreams to the next level. By making things really simple and applicable. I think MBAs, you know, they'll try to intentionally use language that makes people feel like an outsider, or maybe that it's unintentional. That's just what they learned and they heard, and you know, but you kind of listen to stuff and you're like, I don't understand anything that they're talking about. And that's not a you problem. It's not your fault. It's just, you know, it's very exclusive language. You can take those concepts and make them very applicable to other people and actually help more people be successful in the world. And I feel like that's kind of a role that I have, is to bridge the gap, if you will, and make innovation, make technology, e-commerce applicable and accessible for more people.
Love it, mate. So, I mean, I just want to draw on a few points. You know, the whole episode or the whole premise of the podcast is about successful scales. Is how do we help people achieve whatever scale looks like to them, whether it's financial freedom, whether it's an exit, whether it's running the biggest e-commerce store that they can manage. And I think that in our relationship, right off the bat, one thing that I realize, and one thing that becomes more and more clear to me, is that in life, businesses don't do business with businesses. It's people do business with people. And
sure,
that relationship building, the fact that we bonded over some, you know, over common beliefs, and like you said, building your tribe and building that thought leadership, and, you know, the fact that you think that way, and then you also take on the ability to break down complex information and make it digestible, which is, by the way, a book that I don't know if we talked about, The Sales Acceleration Formula by Mark Roberge, but he talks about intelligence as someone's ability to break down complex insights and have it, you know, for a second grader to understand. So I think you're the perfect person to be doing it.
Wonderful.
And
we'll find out, won't we? Yeah, we'll soon see. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think there's a part that's critical for growth and scalability. And again, I'm gonna come at it from a very different angle than how most people would approach it. For me, it starts with fulfillment. And I'm not talking about e-commerce fulfillment. We're not talking about drop shipping. But there's an element where so many people get caught off guard and sidetracked trying to do something they believe will make them lots of money so that they can go and do something they love. And what I've seen time and time again, just from my own personal experience, from people, you know, friends, colleagues, acquaintances who are caught up in this, whether it's passive income goal, or, you know, I want to be super successful here so that I can quit my job and exit and go do this or that and the other. And I've often seen, more times than not, it not work for two reasons. One is things are never as easy as everybody else makes them out to seem. Like, to create a 7-figure business that you can then just go lay on a beach and like have everybody else do all the work for you and manage is not as easy as somebody might make it seem.
Amazon's not a passive income?
It can be if you're Amazon. I mean, but I mean, not even Amazon. Like Amazon, Amazon works. Yeah. But here's a guy who's worked his tail off for the last 25 years. Nothing is passive. Anything worth doing takes effort. But for me, it's more an aspect of, if you don't do something that's fulfilling, you're basically taking those years of your life and wasting them. And I'm not saying that you don't ever do things to pay the bills. We talked about this. Like, I believe the core function of a business is to put food on the table. Still, I mean, we could talk about all these other aspects of business, and, you know, we've got ROI and we've got growth acceleration and valuations. And none of that really matters if you can't put food on the table for your family and you can't help your employees do the same. And certainly in this last year, we've seen that happen with a lot of companies who made mistakes or were caught off guard and were unable to do that. And, you know, just undergoing the significant challenges that it brought. But I think if you look at it from a place of, where am I most fulfilled? That's actually where you're going to be the most successful. That's actually where you're going to achieve the greatest growth, and you can enjoy doing it every step of the way. And so for me, I think about the things that I am gratified by. I most love being able to take the skills and talent and knowledge that I've achieved and accumulated over the years, and help a company take it to the next level. And it doesn't matter where they're at. It doesn't matter if they're just getting started and we take them like to that first level, or if they're like doing really well and we just, bump them up another, 10%, 20%. Typically for the clients that we work with, I think I mentioned on our call, we see a 200 to 400% increase.
Do you know what?
Year over year.
I've got a million questions for you, but before I do, before I go into a lot of the things that are kind of that higher level existential thing, which I think, you're talking about the purpose, what's driving effectively the why we exist in business. Why do we do what we do, and what makes us satiated? And I think that is at the core of everything that's important in life. And that's what you're going to see. Successful businesses are only going to be successful when it has the right driving factors, when it's money that's driving if the outcome is money, then you're either not going to be happy or you're not going to be successful. But I would love you just to kind of take a second and help people understand what you do between your consulting to your courses. Just give a little bit of a background.
Yeah. So I started off 8 years ago. So we'll dive into my journey into entrepreneurship. I got laid off my job for being really efficient. And I worked in lean, doing efficiency, and applied lean to my own job. And they're like, great, we don't need you anymore. Sayonara. Wow. Gave me a pink slip. Wow. And I was like, okay, thanks for nothing. But really,
well, thanks for everything.
Thanks. Yeah, well, exactly. You take those things in retrospect and you go, I probably wouldn't have started if I didn't get the boot out of the bird's nest and kind of be forced to fly. So my best friend, Eric, encouraged me. My wife and I had gotten back from Africa. We'd spent a little time over there, and he helped me start my first web design company. And I basically he just taught me everything I needed to know. And this is a principle that I've carried with me is, after that experience, I'm like, I never wanted to go into a new business without having somebody who'd already been successful show me how to be successful as well. Like, there's people out there who have done that, and you're like, why would I ever want to start? And sometimes it's hard to find those people. In fact, it's really hard to find those people who can actually show you how to be successful. But he basically was like, here's all the mistakes I've ever made. Here's all the tools that I use. Here's the resources. Here's the strategies. And I was able to take that and create a very successful web design company. Well, a few years into that, we started getting into Amazon. And as it grew, I eventually discovered and saw the writing on the wall. Amazon is going to be significant. And even though I was a good web designer and I knew I could do it well, I love this calling and this idea that Jim Collins talks about in his book, Good to Great, your hedgehog concept. Okay, so what drives your economic engine? What are you passionate about? Going back to fulfillment and passion. And what drives your economic engine? And I knew that for Amazon, I knew I could do it better than anybody else in the world. And what I don't mean is that I would be the best consultant in the world. I'm not talking about that. But I did believe that I could explain it better than anybody else could. And so what I've done is I've taken this and created different levels, essentially, where my one-to-one consultant, I only work with a handful of select clients, typically on average about 5 clients at a time, where I'm actually in their account, helping them understand the basics of infrastructure, listing optimization, advertising, the Amazon flywheel, if you will, and accelerating growth. So that's like the one-to-one. So that's very select, very privileged clients who actually get that spot one-on-one. But I love doing it when I block out a full day and just work with those clients and accounts. And especially when it's a mess. If I get a client who's like, their account is a mess, their listings are a mess, that's my favorite thing because I love cleanup. It's just how I'm wired.
I envy you so much.
Organizing, cleaning up, getting rid of unauthorized resellers, cleaning up the intellectual property, optimizing listings, taking control over it, building this massive, beautiful system is like my funnest thing. And they're like, we launch them off to success and then I'm on to the next one. Like, I don't even like day-to-day management. I don't do management. I do cleanup and optimization. And the principles to launch successfully are actually the same principles to clean up, successfully. But that's sort of like the one-to-one. The one-to-many is the courses that I've spent the last 5.5 years building called the Amazon Brand Success Academy. And we just moved to a monthly pricing model, again, to make it more accessible. I wanted it to be more accessible to more business owners. So post-pandemic, we just said, look, so many companies and brands need to get on Amazon, need to figure out Amazon because retail is getting crushed for so many companies and e-commerce is it. And there's not an idea, or I should say there's a misnomer that if you use Amazon, you're a sellout. You're not. You can leverage Amazon and control the platform and the customer experience to a very strong degree if you know what you're doing, if you know how to do it. And so the courses then becomes that scalable aspect of one to many. But it took me 8 years to earn the knowledge and 5.5 years to take all that intrinsic knowledge and work really hard to make it simple. And I cannot even begin to tell you, I mean, this is like a, nights and weekends project, in addition to the time I spend during the day. But there's an element where every single lesson, if I'm doing something on listing optimization, say just images, really, really simple, I will think through every single aspect. What are the most important things that a brand owner needs to know about image optimization? What's the best order to present the information? What are the best examples that I can use to convey these concepts? And what are the best resources that I can give them to go get those done if they don't know how to do it in-house? And I spend every ounce of energy to that same level of intensity for every single lesson in the course, so that when people go through, and I get that feedback all the time, they're like, oh my gosh, it's so simple. Like you just lay everything out and it's so clear and it's easy to understand. And then you give me action steps. It's like, but that's the aspect where my challenge was I only knew how to do business one-to-one. I never did advertising before. I terrible at digital marketing. I didn't have an email list. I would just build a website for somebody. They would refer me to somebody else. I'd get referrals. It was almost all word of mouth. And then I would build their website and then they'd be happy with it and so forth. Well, you could do that one-to-one. It's a lot harder to do that kind of growth, scalability to reach thousands or hundreds of thousands of businesses simply from a word of mouth thing. I mean, there are companies that do it, Trader Joe's, for example. I mean, they don't do marketing, but it's also very rare, unless you have like an Elon Musk at the head of the company for Tesla to say like, hey, we don't run car commercials. You can get away with it. But for me, that was my scalable journey of just doing one-to-one to doing one-to-many, not because I didn't want to do one-to-one anymore, but because I wanted to help people. And I knew personally I could only help 5 companies at a time. So this allowed me to do that and, help 500 or 5,000 or 50,000 companies at a time.
Wow, you have covered so many points. I was just sitting here writing down note after
Taking
note
notes,
after note.
I know.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna start rattling off a few questions that, for me, again, as much as this is about everyone else garnering knowledge on how to scale and how to grow and how to create more value and how to kind of have more impact and more output and all that stuff, like this is a learning journey for me too. So I feel very privileged to be able to sit and talk to, such clearly hyper intelligent guys like you in terms of your process and your methodology. We could have a whole session just talking about your specific methodology on how you build our courses, because we have our own process improvement methodology inside of our consulting business. And I'm sure we'd have some really interesting conversations and synergies around that. So
yeah.
But my question to you, my first question to you is, you talked about learning from people who had been there before, and you talked about the fact that you wanted to go into the business when you went into web design, and you wanted to kind of have someone who'd written the playbook effectively and gotten there.
Yeah.
What's your position on, like, how do you absorb and attain additional knowledge? Like, are you leveraging mentors? Do you do masterminds? Like, what are the, I know you read a lot of books, but what are the things that are driving your personal growth forward?
Yeah, I do. I do read a ton of books. Some people kind of have to force themselves to read books. I have to force myself to put them down. They're like, how do you read? I mean, I got 2 young kids, super active boys at home. So I'm like, if it's a Sunday afternoon and I'm laying on the couch, I'll grab a book. And if I get 5 minutes of reading it, I'll grab it for 5 minutes, and then when the kids go to bed, I'll read a little more before bed. But, there's an aspect where books are certainly a key aspect of it. I do love podcasts. I like podcasts more for, I don't know, let's call it more like snacks and stuff. I like to be fascinated. So usually when I go on a morning walk every morning, I like to just listen to a podcast and just learn about something that's fun or fascinating. I don't really make it like a hardcore, I want to learn about business or marketing. Like the last thing I want to do is listen to a podcast about email marketing, for example, in the morning. But I am a part of a mastermind that I started actually. And this came from a speaker that I was listening to. It's actually at a marriage conference. And he said, when I was getting started, I was hanging out with so-and-so and I was talking to so-and-so is part of our group. And he's naming these people who are like international speakers, renowned best-selling authors, podcasters, like just on and on and on. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I had the thought and I said, you know what? There's no way that it's a coincidence that all these guys knew each other and that all these guys made it, right? They happen to be guys. But I was like, there's no way that that it was coincidence. And I coined this concept, feel free to steal it, is
I'm going to.
Greatness grows in groups. I call it 3G. Greatness grows in groups. And the idea is that if you and I connect, and we probably will, we'll probably at some point, build and grow. But in fact, we've already done it. I've already started introducing you to people I know. And if you and I collaborate.
And on top of that, we're going to become subscribers of the course, and who knows how far we'll take it. Seriously. So
there's an aspect where if you and I work together, we can share our knowledge, the principles that we've learned, the concept. When I was starting my course, I created a 3G group in Pasadena, and we met at a coffee shop.
Is that where you're out of? Yeah, you did mention that.
That's where I lived. So we're a little bit south of the Rose Bowl. And so
beautiful.
So I started a group.
Huntington Gardens.
Oh, it's beautiful. So every month we get together and I'd say, hey, I'm starting this course. And somebody would say, oh, have you listened to this podcast about Coursera? Or have you checked this guy out? Have you listened to this resource? And so the idea was that if we collaborated, our resources would double or triple or quadruple. Our network would double or triple or quadruple. And it really started off with my best friend, Phil, and I. He was working at a law firm, and we met for breakfast once a week. And we would just share concepts. And I would say, here's what I'm struggling with my business. And he'd say, here's what he's struggling with his business. And we would just give each other feedback. And he'd say, I'm having trouble with the website. I'm like, Phil, I'm a web designer. Like, let me build your website. So we were able to work together and exponentially grow our businesses. We thought if we could do this with 2 people, imagine what we could do with 3 or 4 or 10, And so one of the coolest stories out of that, I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but it's absolutely, I think, essential. My friend Jacques is an engineer, and he had this really challenging dilemma. He was a brilliant engineer. He had a really hard time taking tests, sitting down, doing standardized tests. He hadn't been able to pass whatever sort of the certification exam is in California for engineers. They're like, we want to promote you to a supervisor. And like, they couldn't give him these promotions that they wanted to because he hadn't passed this exam, even though he was overqualified. And Phil said, I had the same challenges when I was studying for the bar. He said, I'm going to coach you through this process. And he would actually book out room in his conference room for his law firm. And he would set him up. He's like, you have to have things exactly laid out the exact same way that you're going to be at the test. And we're going to lay out the exact pencils that you're going to use and your cup of water and your headphones, and like get into the zone and focus. And he did the practice exam in the conference room. And then he went and took it. And after something like 5 years, he finally passed. Like, this is the power of greatness grows in groups. He wouldn't have done that. He couldn't have done that if we hadn't said, hey, you can do it and we can help you do it. And I think that's the part of business that we're missing. Like, people want to inspire you and say, like, you can do it. Okay, you can do it, go. But if they don't help you do it, what's the point? We need people who can come on our side, on our team, and say, I'm not just going to inspire you, I'm actually going to help you. And that's where friendship comes in. That's where relationship is. So like, if you want to scale your business, like once you found something that you're passionate about and that can drive your economic engines, like surround yourself with people. And so what if nobody's invited you to a mastermind group? Go out and start your own. So what? Who cares? Like, just do it.
I just got onto my 3rd one last night. I was sitting on a call with a couple of my new friends, and they're like, yeah, we're doing one every 2 weeks on marketing. I'm like, great. I've got some stuff I can share. They've got things they can share. And all of a sudden you're putting your heads together. I couldn't agree more.
There's a really funny documentary, and it talks about, all these guys, all these directors, Brian De Palma, Steven Spielberg, George Lucas. It's like, and I think George Lucas on the documentary, so he says, what are the odds that all of us like used to hang out together and we all made it. And I'm like, very high. They're very, very high because it wasn't an accident. There is a concept that greatness grows in groups. So be intentional about creating those groups of people that you can grow together with. And it's this idea that you can't have competition. I mean, I have a mastermind with other Amazon brand consultants, even though we all run, whether it's courses or agencies, that kind of thing. And you could say, well, aren't you competitors? We just say, look, we believe there's over 1 million sellers on Amazon. There's thousands of brands who want to be on Amazon who aren't and who don't know how to do it. We think there's enough fish out there to sustain all of our businesses. And we think we can do a better job if we work together and collaborate than if we're in constant competition and trying to hide all of our secrets and hold our golden nuggets and not give. And it requires a very high level of trust. But if you can find other people that you can garner that level of trust with, you can accomplish anything. It's incredible.
I mean, you've touched on so many points that, and again, like it becomes just every second that you're talking about all the points that are relevant to you in life, in business, and your direction and what you hold true. I understand even now why you resonate so deeply with me. And some of the key points that you talked about is you have a very clear abundance mindset. And I think having that mindset and, going in, and people look at, competitors and things like that, holding your IP. My first position on that, if someone can screenshot the presentations we put together in our consulting business, and record it, and that's the end of our business, like we don't have a business. So that's the first thing, really believe in what you're doing here. But it's that mindset, that abundance mindset that allows you to grow. And so it's not about money in my pocket is better in your pocket, but together we're better. Greatness grows in groups is what you had coined. And I would say, even to take that one step further, there's this whole disproportionate distribution of wealth. There's always the talk about the 1%ers. And what I'm realizing now is that, speaking to people like you, Shannon, and speaking to a lot of the guys and women that I get to talk to, not just on the show, but in life, in business today, I'm inspired every day. I jump out of bed in the morning. I can't wait to get on a conversation. I can't wait to learn. I can't wait to share knowledge that I have. And so I think what inherently happens here when you talk about growth and scale and opportunity is that I want to work with the people that I value, and I want to see them succeed, and they want to see me succeed. And so it's not an accident that, that you've got, Spielberg and Lucas that are absolutely crushing it together. And, I'd even say like all the guys, all the guys, if we're talking movies here, like Seth Rogen and that whole crew, like they do all of their movies all together and they're all hilarious. It's like they're just mates hanging out, being creative with each other. And so it's, I really feel like, when we talk about, getting back to the ideas that we're trying to share here, it's building those relationships, it's working with the people that inspire you, and it's also giving back. It's also, how do I not just take, how do I give?
Well, and I think that brings up an important point, because I've even, said a lot, like, the different mentors and, people who have coached me through business. And I do have a couple, actually one of my former clients, kind of ironically, like I helped him on Amazon and now he's mentoring me and coaching me through, my growth of business. And a lot of the people who have inspired me and a lot of the people that we've even talked about on the podcast so far have been men. Well, this brings up a really key point, and that is female founders, which I believe is like one of the most underserved, developing entrepreneurial markets out there. And I think for me, it's just, if we look back historically, just because of the way our culture was set up, society was set up, you could talk about discrimination in the workplace, that's existed for centuries. There's certain things that we need to be intentional about doing and breaking down to relieve some of those burdens and barriers. I mean, like, female founders, and I don't know the statistics off in my head, but, I think something like get less than 1% of the venture capital, that's given to businesses. And Alex Batdorf has an accelerator for female founders that I actually give my time to do coaching to different female founders. And I love being a part of that, because I feel like we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the women, the female founders and co-founders in our lives, to weigh the scales in a way that creates more balance and equity. Because, to be really honest, like if I think about where I am, I wouldn't even be anywhere close to where I am without all of the female co-founders and female founders in business that I collaborate with on a daily basis. I mean, not even close. I'm talking about from my social media people to the partners that I work with on Amazon. I mean, in every aspect, from marketing, like it doesn't matter what element is. I look around and I'm like, I wouldn't have a fraction of what I do. And yet the scales are tipped. I mean, I think, at the end of last quarter, there was a massive layoff that happened, and almost all of it was women, and they rehired men. And I think for me, this is like, it's a very sad lack of recognition of the value of women in the workplace. I still don't understand how we can pay women different than men. Like it doesn't even compute with me, because the value that women bring to the entrepreneur table is exceptional. And I just think that we need to, again, be intentional about creating opportunities to break some of the barriers and shift the scales in a way that's more equitable.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I think that when I look at like what we've done, about 85% of our business today is driven by women internally for us. And I would say that I have some of the most capable, thought-provoking and inspiring people around me, and they just all happen to be women. I've been joking about this a lot lately, saying like, we better start hiring some men, otherwise we're going to start getting some equal opportunity cases. But I've got to say as well, like that's also been a big part of the success that we've seen, is that because we promote a work from home environment, we have like all of these young mothers who are working with us, and they work around their schedule, and the corporates of the world won't touch them. And it's more power to us. Like I'm stoked to be a part of actually being a part of something that I would say is becoming a bit of a movement here in terms of giving back. And also let's also not take anything away. These are incredible women who are driving the limits of where our business can go. And so I'm with you. If we need to be supporting more female founders. I happen to live in Tel Aviv, Israel, where it's the most, I can't remember what the stat was, but I don't know if it's the most female founders, but the way in which the culture is geared is really empowering a lot more in terms of female founders here. But yeah, resonates with me.
And it's kind of like the 3G scale, the 3G concept at scale, and sort of like with a history, right? Because again, people are appointed to positions on boards or hired as CEOs or given venture capital based on, well, I knew this person and they knew this person and we went to school together. And when that whole group or a large percentage of that group is all men, guess what? I mean, it's like it happens naturally by default because there was that 3G concept. The problem is what we just have to do is we have to be way more intentional about inviting women into that place, because I don't want to just see more female founders get venture capital. I want to see more female founders be venture capitalists and be at the top making the decisions who to give that money to and who to come behind and empower. And again, it's especially as men in this culture and being white men, in particular, like it's about removing barriers and obstacles. Women are already empowered. It's simply about getting out of their way and allowing them to do what they're so good at. And it's about equal partnerships, that we really value people. And, I just think there's an aspect of like, I've worked with so many people in business, and the people that I've been, to put it bluntly, like screwed by the worst were all guys. I mean, it was just like, they were men.
Amen.
It's just like, I mean, if you want somebody who's going to stand by you and show you decency and support, like, get a female co-founder. But I think all these pieces play, and, sort of those are the underlying principles of what drive. But, because I do Amazon, would love to jump into maybe some practical aspects of kind of, again, sort of framing the concepts for scalability on Amazon. Because I think I don't want to just inspire people. I want to give people some practical takeaways as well.
Well, before you give them practical takeaways, you talk to me. I don't want to do this exercise live, and I don't know how much you want to
Okay.
share or not, but
Sure.
it was really powerful when you have a series of 3 questions that you like to ask people,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe if you feel like sharing it, great, we can move on. If not, but I really found that a really interesting way in trying to truly uncover what is your why, what is your driving factor behind what you do in life and in business, and if they're married together.
Yeah, so I will share that, and then I'll actually share a second one that's a way more practical takeaway that people can do. The first one is a sort of a thought example, um, and the concept is to suss out what are our true definitions of success versus what are the cultural definitions of success that we have simply accepted and allowed to be imprinted upon us. And so, you can do this yourself. You can ask a friend to go through it. But the first question is, uh, how do you define success? So just like one sentence or two, how do you define success? And people usually sort of get, oh, like it means I can do whatever I want to. It means I've achieved this level of, money or revenue or whatever, and this much free time in my life. The second question shifts a bit and says, what are the core values of a good friend? And now all of a sudden, we're not thinking about money. We're thinking about, again, sort of those internal human values like, well, faithfulness is really important. Kindness, generosity, honesty, character, integrity, that aspect, like that's really important for friendship. And the last question is, now, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? And the concept becomes clear as you move through these questions. How much does your first definition of success align with your last one? Because as Stephen Covey points out in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, what you want people to say about you at your funeral is actually your definition of success. Nobody says, I really want people to say about me at my funeral that I made 7-figure income and had lots of free time. Nobody will ever say that at your funeral. If they do, it'll be a very short funeral, and there'll only be 2 people there.
Or you literally paid them with all the money you had to say it at your funeral.
Yeah, they say they made a lot of money and they didn't get to take it with them. But the question really is, the middle question is a pivot question because it gets you thinking about the external identifiers of success and about the emotional concepts and values that are actually dear to us and that we actually care about, that are actually important to us, and see how much that then feeds into what we want people to say about us at our funeral. The second one that I want to give the audience is a very practical takeaway, and this is something that I've done. My wife and I've done it together. I've done it with other friends and people. But when people are trying to figure out that part that I talked about at the beginning, what are you great at? What are you passionate about? What do you want to do? What I tell people to do is take a sheet of paper and draw a single line down the center and then a line across the top. And on the left hand, write down everything that makes you feel alive. And on the right hand, write down all of the skills and talents that you've acquired, things that you're good at. Now, you don't have to like them or enjoy doing them per se. I'm good at computers. I can type, 65 words per minute. I don't love sitting at a computer all day, but it's something that I'm good at. When I combine that skill with, I'm passionate about empowering brand owners and business owners and entrepreneurs. I love helping people take their business to the next level. I get really excited about innovation and creating something new that's never been done before. Like, what's really fascinating is as you write this sheet of paper out, a job description starts to emerge, and you're probably going to see it in a way that you've never seen it before. And I really challenge the audience to do this if you haven't, because you're going to take something away that you wouldn't otherwise. And 90% of people will listen to something and not do anything with it. So I really want to challenge you, take the time. It can be 10 minutes to do this exercise. You're going to see this roll of, wow, if I take the things that make me feel alive and the things that I'm good at, the skills and talents I've acquired, and put them together and can create this job that I can do, I will be fulfilled. And the amazing thing is, as we do that, yes, you can be fulfilled and you can earn revenue and you can scale and you can build. But the thing is, if we spent 50 years of our lives just making money, ignoring the thing that fulfills us, that's going to equate to a wasted life. Because again, a lot of people, they go for this 7-figure exit. They never get there. And I've listened to the podcast where at the end of the podcast, they ask everybody, how much money, Yoni, is enough? How much money do you, and oh, well, $1 million would be great. And then they're like, well, I actually ran the numbers. $1 million isn't actually a lot of money after taxes. So maybe 2 million. And it just keeps getting higher. And then it's 5 million. And then it's 10 million. Oh, but I'd like to travel. Oh, I want to have a beach house in Rome. And all of these things are just things. But at the end of the day, if you don't actually do what fulfills you, then what are you going to have to show for it at the end of your life? I want to lead a fulfilling life more than I want to lead a financially prosperous life. And I don't think they're mutually exclusive. In fact, they're not. I think as you actually tap into what you're good at, what you're designed for, what you're passionate about, you are going to be great at it because you work at it, because you enjoy doing it, because you thrive on it, because other people pick up on that. And that's what I define success as, like being able to fully be alive and fully be you. And that's what I get to enjoy. Like, that's what I love about being an entrepreneur and not having a boss per se, is not that I don't have any responsibility or somebody telling me what to do. It's that I get to continually craft my role so that I can be in the most fulfilling place, the biggest percentage of my time. That's what I value as an entrepreneur. That's what I value the most.
So you've touched on a bunch of very, very interesting points. And again, I'm so glad and so happy to have you here, because just the way you look at the world is that little bit different. And because of that, you really get to the core of what's driving the person behind the business. And so when I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about what am I not preaching, but what am I trying to help all the people that I'm trying to help in life, in business do? It's, a big part of it. And here's a quote for you. I didn't coin this one. This is from Abraham Lincoln, of all people. And he said, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 sharpening my axe. And so what I draw from your exercise right there is, rather than thinking about the business and the exit plan and everything that you hope to achieve from a commercially viable standpoint, look at you, at your core, at your essence, understand what your roadmap looks like into maximizing yourself, and not from a financial gain. I think that if you can maximize your potential capabilities, your passions, and your output, then that monetary gain will be the byproduct of. And for me, I'm a huge believer in that financially motivated people are never going to be truly successful as what I would define as success, but that's going to have to be a whole nother conversation, because we're going to run out of time. But I love that exercise. I'm going to walk away and do it myself, because I think that's a lot of the things that people miss, is that they don't know what their why is. But before you can even get to your why, you need to understand who you are and how you can achieve whatever it is that you can achieve, because all of us are capable of greatness. It's about how do we actually tap into that and maximize that output so that we're living a fulfilled life, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, my parents used to take me to a lake, and there was a little rental house that we go to, and there was a sign when you'd go in the door, and I still remember this, and it would just say, leave the house in better condition than when you found it. And that made a significant impact on me, even as a kid, as a young boy, when I used to go. I believe we should leave the world in a better condition than when we found it. And when we think about our business from that standpoint, how can I create products and services and run a business so that the people's lives who I've impacted are better as a result of me being here in existence? That's the gift we give the world. That's what will make people stand up at your funeral and say, I'm thankful that this person had an incredible life and that they gave their gifts and their talents and their skills to this business or what have you, because it made an impact on my life. Those are the stories that make people stand up and cheer. And I think for me, again, if we look at our business through that lens, Jim Collins relates a story where Peter Drucker gave him the best advice. He basically said, stop worrying so much about trying to be successful, and instead just try to be helpful. And just he said, spend more time worrying about how to make yourself useful. And again, he's answering that question. Stop worrying about success from a monetary standpoint. And if you can create value and impact people's lives, that's actually what's going to make the difference in the impact. And the money will follow. If you have a good model, you can figure out a model to monetize that. Certainly, from a hedgehog concept standpoint, you're going to have everything that you need and want in life.
We talked about it last time we spoke, mate. The gift of giving without the expectation of reciprocation for me. And you know what? I am going to speak for you. I feel like for both of us, it is the most powerful thing that we can do with our time on this planet. And, that is we talked about it a little bit, but for me as well, like everything that I'm doing today, I want to help every single person that I come in contact with in whatever way I can. But my dreams and aspirations, money is not the outcome. My goals in life are a lot more altruistic than anything that I'll do commercially. I'm going to drop another book for you. I don't know if you've read it, but 80,000 Hours. So it's a very quick read. You'd probably read it in one of your 5-minute breaks. And it's about, well, maybe not for guys like you or me, but for a lot of people, 80,000 hours is the number of hours your professional career should typically span. And so it's about effective altruism. How do you have the most impact in life? And they give a really interesting analogy. They talk about a GP, a general practitioner in medicine, who will save, I think, approximately 12 lives directly, which is an incredible achievement, right? To save 12 lives, to be directly connected. And they then take the idea that if you were just to donate $5,000 to this malaria fund that exists in, I think, South Sudan, you'll save 1,000 people a year. And so they talk about how do you actually maximize it. And I really wanted to went to Burning Man the first time in 2014. At the end of it, I said, fuck all of this. I'm going to go into the not-for-profit space. I want to make an impact. And I read that book at that moment. A friend of mine, a childhood friend of mine, actually said, you got to read this book before you make any kind of rash decisions. And I read it and I thought, I can have more impact when I'm in a competitive space where I'm pushed to the ends of my capabilities. And I feel like I'm pushed every day here. And that's when you make a transition into something. Once you actually have the toolkit, the skills to have true impact and add real value to humanity. And that's, for me, a driving factor. If you ask me what my why is, that would be right up at the top of it.
Yeah. I mean, again, Simon Sinek does a really good job laying out, it's just a matter of priorities. You have to make a profit to run a business. But if it's at the top of your list, everybody's going to be a little wary of you because, the people in my life that I know who I've encountered over the years, of 8 years of being an entrepreneur, who making money was at the top of their list, they're the most likely people to sell you out the second they get the opportunity, or sell you short, or cut corners, or lay people off to make an extra buck. These people can be very admirable on social media because they look like they're ginormous success and make, millions of dollars. That's, billions of dollars. That's great. But you'd want to be really careful being friends with them or hanging out with them. And again, I think Simon Sinek says, you have performance and trust, and performance is the people that you trust with your life, but trust is the people that you trust with your wife and your money, and your spouse and your money. And so again, there's just this aspect of like, I want to be high performance and high trust, and I want to be able to accomplish incredible things, but have people trust me and know that I'm going to put their best interest first as opposed to my own. Just there's good people out there, there's complicated people, but if you start to put yourself out there and define who you are and who you want to be, you'll begin to attract and be attracted to the right kind of people, and build your 3G, build your greatness grows in groups, and let me know how it goes.
Love it. Well, before I let you go today, I would love two things. The first is you've been giving, tons of wisdom today, but if there was one thing for people to take away, to put you on the spot here, because that's what I'm doing, what would be one of your pieces of advice to anyone who's aspiring to achieve more in life?
I mean, I wish I could bring up something new, but it really does come back to that core foundational of discovering. When teachers tell kids you can be anything you want to, I think that's a little bit of a misnomer. It's inspiring, and we should never tell kids like you can't do something, and certainly not because of race or culture or background, anything, gender, all those sort of ridiculous notions. But there is an aspect of discovering who you are and discovering what you can be great at. I'll never be a Michael Jordan. I'll never play basketball that well, but I can be a
I
great
believe in
Amazon,
you.
but I can be a great Amazon expert and consultant, and I can do that really well. And that comes not from deciding who we want to be, but discovering who I believe we were created to be, who we were meant to be, and then falling in line with that, because I do believe that's going to be the most fulfilling, gratifying life. And I think that what we can accomplish when we do that is incredible. So it's never to like say, it's to like hold us back. But, you know, when you look at it from strengths finder position, you know, Rudy, it's a very inspiring story. I mean, you know, he's like this football player and he played one play at a college game and that was like tackled the quarterback. You're like, he accomplished almost nothing. You're like, yeah, it's very inspiring, but skill wise and strengths wise and talents wise, it probably wasn't the best suit. And those stories, again, they're fun and inspiring, but probably not good business advice. If you want to do something great, first spend time discovering what you're good at. And that's where that exercise comes into play. And it's really, really handy.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Okay. So the last thing is that should anyone want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
The best way is typically LinkedIn. It's the platform I'm most active on. LinkedIn, it's just Shannon Roddy. I just joined Clubhouse, so you can find me on Clubhouse at Shannon Roddy. And then the website is marketplacesellercourses.com. And we've got some contact stuff in there. We didn't even get a chance to touch about Amazon, but we've got a free masterclass that you can go through. That's basically everything that I would have shared on the podcast. So if you want to get my take on how to be successful on Amazon, go through the masterclass and then enroll in the courses. And you're going to get 8 years of expertise, overnight in a 6-week period, and stay enrolled as long as you need to really get the nuts and bolts of Amazon nailed down.
Awesome. You know, if I wasn't sold before, which I was, just hearing you share knowledge and wisdom and the way you break down points and the way you look at things at such a high level and you can so easily deconstruct them, just, you know, I'm super excited for Lippy to sit down, chat with you, and for us to continue to grow. You know, when you talk about 3 Gs right here, like it's happening right before your eyes, my friend, whether you like it or not.
I love to be inspired and I love to inspire others. So it's a lot of fun, but definitely reach out and just, even if it's just to connect, because I love connecting with other people who are inspired and passionate like I am about building a brand or building something great.
Awesome. Well, mate, thank you so much again for coming on. And I guarantee you're going to be back. So I look forward to it already. I'm counting down the days.
Thanks again, Yoni. Appreciate it.